The bullets and the punches and the riots have been flowing in only one direction for too long.
I've been trying to tell you guys this whole time how corrupt all of these things were, and here we are.
It is not our responsibility to fix something they spent years intentionally trying to destroy. Unity can only happen in a country when you have a people who agree on what the outcome should be.
What's up, everybody? Happy Monday. It's Thanksgiving week. How's everybody doing today? Happy Monday. Nom, how's it going?
Well, I'm fit to be tied today. Got a lot of nonsense going on. Nom's fit to be tied. It is Thanksgiving week. Mrs. Nom and I.
Your voice has been out, so I can tell your voice is starting to come back, so that's good.
Yeah, kind of. It's starting to come back. If I go into rage or coughing fits, I will try to mute myself. I apologize. Yesterday was really the first day I was able to talk since like Thursday, so bear with me.
It's going to be funny hearing you lose your crap tonight with a hoarse voice. That'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be really fun.
Awesome, folks. I don't know if you've noticed, but we're missing somebody.
We are.
SK is not going to be with us tonight, and I don't know, Nom. Last time we were left alone, I'm pretty sure we started a whole lot of trouble. I mean, I remember like house parties and like calling and ordering pizzas for people. And then, you know,
we've been alone together long since then, but yeah, we tend to get in trouble when it's just the two of us.
You're a
lot better behaved now than you were.
That is very true. That is very true. That's what happens when you develop a relationship with Jesus Christ and you marry a woman who holds you accountable to that. That's what she does. But without SK here, we're just going to have to wing it and make it up and see how this goes. This could be fun. It could be a total crap show. Who knows? I'm expecting it to actually be a good time. Folks, for those of you guys that have been following along with the Patriot Family Saga, thank you so much for your generosity. It has been incredibly helpful. The Patriot family is finally settled in our temporary permanent place. We met an amazing couple that owns a Christmas tree farm, and we are renting a property on a Christmas tree farm. Like, how cool is that? Outside, everywhere you look, there's Christmas trees everywhere. And of course, part of that deal is that we always have real Christmas trees in our home. So now we will be getting our Christmas tree from the incredible couple that has been so kind to allow us to rent a property. So you're starting to see the beginnings of the Patriot Corner version 2 come together. Next time you see us, we'll have some lights in here. We got some ambiance. You guys see my fireplace over there? Don't worry, it's not real. It's a fake fireplace, but it looks really cool.
I was going to say, are you sure you want to play around with that?
It looks, I mean, it's just a fake fireplace, but it looks really cool. We'll have some lights in here. We're going to do all kinds of stuff, but what you can't see, and maybe let me see if I can turn my camera around just a little bit. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I've got a portcullis here with a stained glass window in it. Like, how neat is that? And anyway, it's just a pretty cool property. So we're blessed to be here, and we're very thankful for the family that allowed us in. And this is where we'll be for the next year or so while we rebuild our home. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We've got an incredible...
Real quick before we move on. So in the comments, folks are already asking, is SK okay? Yes, SK is okay. She still likes us. She still wants to do a podcast with us. She's just got some family stuff going on. She couldn't make it. She's actually back home like about 30 minutes ago, but she's like, I can't get ready for the show, which is fine. Yeah. So listen, we're going to try to have some fun together. Let's see what we can do.
Look, we're two dudes that can throw a t-shirt on and a hat and jump on a podcast. I don't know if that's true for, that's exactly what I did too. As a matter of fact, in case you guys haven't noticed, I got my new allotment of Patriot Crew gear. Now, Patriot Crew does not sponsor this show, and they should. Patriot Crew, what are you doing? I'm like a walking billboard for you guys, not because you asked me to wear your clothes, but because I love them and they're comfortable. So whenever you're ready to start sponsoring, we're ready for it, because I love your stuff, and I have a lot more of it, and I'll continue to wear it because it's the most comfortable clothes, shirt, sweatshirt, long sleeve t-shirts I've ever owned. Nonetheless, we've got a show to do tonight, and this is a really, really important one. We hate to bring this stuff to you right before Thanksgiving, but it's a topic that you have to know about, because the color revolution does not stop for Thanksgiving week. It doesn't stop for Christmas. It doesn't, as a matter of fact, it escalates when most people aren't paying attention. And when most people were preparing to cook their turkeys and put food on their table and spend time with their family, we witnessed an all-out assault on the executive branch take place over the last couple of days. And what happened today in the district courts is nothing less than judicial tyranny and congressional, or should I say, senatorial sedition. I think I framed that properly. Nom, did I frame it properly? Senatorial sedition?
Well, I don't know if you could frame it just as senatorial sedition because, yes, in the judicial branch, you've got these district court judges doing all the insurrectionist things that they've been doing since the day President Trump took office the second time. All of these injunctions and temporary restraining orders and universal temporary injunctions and all of those things. Yes. But yes, we also have 2 senators and another one, frankly, in Mitch McConnell, who is basically enabling the executive branch, the unitary executive, from being able to appoint who he wants to enforce the law in the state of Virginia. And we're going to get into the blue slip rule and how stupid it is. But it's not just the Senate that's playing a role here, because the other aspect of what we watched happen just in the last week is, as you guys know, the Sedition Six, right? The 6 Democrats, 2 senators, and 4 members of the House of Representatives, who basically came out and put out a video enticing sedition inside the ranks of the U.S. military, which is precisely what they did. So you've got the legislative branch, and you also have the judicial branch, who appear to be working in concert with one another to basically just trample all over the constitutional powers, the Article 2 powers of the President of the United States. And I don't know how we're going to get ourselves out of this unless the president and Pam Bondi just start freaking arresting people. I mean,
that may be what has to happen. We may have to start arresting people who are engaged in this lawfare campaign. And make no mistake, what you guys are seeing right now is nothing more than an escalation of the same lawfare tactics that have been deployed against Donald Trump and his agenda going back to 2015, 2016, and beyond. But what they did today is one of the most disgusting violations of Article 2 probably to ever have happened in the United States. I'm sure there's other ones that I don't know about, but this is one of the most disgusting. You just want to hop into this, Nom? You want to start jumping into it?
Yeah, yeah. So let's get started here.
So I don't know if you guys go ahead.
No, you lead it off.
I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but for the last several weeks, we have been celebrating the fact that it looked like accountability was happening, that we were getting ready to start seeing people held accountable for the crimes that they committed. 2 of those, Leticia James, who was indicted on massive mortgage fraud. And we can walk through the details of why she was indicted, the details of how she defrauded mortgage companies, really going all the way back to the early 80s when her and her father claimed to be a married couple when she bought her first property. And it looks like just about every property she's ever owned has been engaged in some form of mortgage fraud. But so many angles to the mortgage fraud. So she was indicted on mortgage fraud and all kinds of other things. Well, at the same time, as you guys know, James Comey was also indicted, one of the chief conspirators in the grand conspiracy against the American people to deprive us of our constitutional rights and a presidency that we voted for, to deprive us. He was indicted for lying to Congress and a couple of other things. Well, of course, the defense is going to do everything that they can in their power to try to get that indictment thrown out long before it ever even hits the system. And there's actual court cases and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's what they did. So first of all, one of the first things that the defense for James Comey's indictment, one of the things they did is they started to challenge whether the indictment was legitimate at all because of the way the indictment was handed down. They started to challenge the accuracy of the indictment, claiming that only the 4-person and 1 other person that was part of the grand jury actually signed off on it. That fell apart once real evidence showed up, and they realized that the entire grand jury signed off on the indictment. So what do they do next? Well, they go back to the well. Nom, take us through what they did, if you can, on this part of their challenge to the indictment.
Yeah, so we heard the rumblings of this as soon as James Comey was indicted, that Lindsey Halligan, who is the interim U.S. attorney for the District in Virginia, she was appointed by Pam Bondi, according to 28 USC 564, which covers vacancies in U.S. attorney seats. She was appointed because the interim U.S. attorney before her, right before, what was his name? Eric Siebert resigned. He resigned because President Trump was getting ready to fire him because he would not bring these cases to a grand jury, even though there is ample evidence, as we found when the grand jury looked at the evidence and delivered a true bill, 2 counts against James Comey, and I don't know how many counts against, with 2 or 3 counts against Leticia James. Grand juries, Lindsey Halligan did the job. She brought the evidence. She got the indictments like they're supposed to. But what they challenged was that Lindsey Halligan was illegally appointed, according to 28 USC. So let's get a little bit of a refresher on what happened here with Lindsey Halligan.
Yeah, let's talk about the timeline. Give us a timeline.
Yeah. So I guess, Lindsey Halligan was appointed by Pam Bondi in September 22nd of 2025 as the interim U.S. attorney for Virginia. As soon as she was appointed, she was nominated to the Senate for full confirmation, meaning that they sent her over to the Senate to be confirmed. Under 28 USC 546, and we're going to get into this, an interim attorney can only hold that position for 120 days. And we're going to talk about the difference in some language here because there's a little bit of ambiguity in it, but only if you don't understand statutory language like shall not and may. And we're going to get into that. So let's take a step back, because what happened with the previous U.S. attorney is what led to all of this. So we've got Eric Siebert is appointed January 21st, 2025 by President Trump. He couldn't get confirmed, or the Senate just wasn't even attempting to confirm any of Trump's appointments. In fact, I don't think they picked a single one of them up until late this summer.
Yes, September. Let's spend a second on that, because this is a really important point. You guys may remember when Donald Trump was elected and he was inaugurated, he started sending up judicial nominees and appointments for confirmation for all of the prosecutor roles that he wanted to fill. And what happened with those appointments? Well, they went to the Senate and they sat and they sat and they sat and they sat for months and months and months and months. Donald Trump has yet to be able to fully staff his Department of Justice because the Senate has refused to move on these confirmations. Now, they sent through a whole bunch of them right around September, October, but you'll notice there's some really key prosecutor roles that they still are not moving on, and there's a reason for it. So for 9 months, prosecutors that we, the American people, have been relying on to go out and prosecute crimes, federal crimes, with the Department of Justice, we haven't been able to do it because the Senate has refused to do their job.
Right.
Continue.
So again, we have to back up to the original appointment of Eric Siebert, right? So that's 120 day as an interim U.S. attorney. And then according to 28 USC 564, if he is not confirmed by the Senate and their consent, or whatever the heck you call that, my brain is not working right this second. Anyway, if he's not confirmed in 120 days, then the district courts may pick an interim attorney to fill his spot. So since Trump never got any of his U.S. attorneys confirmed, the district courts went in and basically just said, yeah, just stay in your role, 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 right? So Eric Siebert remained the acting and interim U.S. attorney all the way up until he left in September, which is when Lindsey Halligan was appointed in September 22nd, 2025. And that should have restarted the clock, the 120-day interim attorney clock for Lindsey Halligan. And the challenge that Comey's defense attorneys put forward is that, no, it doesn't reset the clock. Only the U.S. district courts now have exclusive power to pick the U.S. attorney for that seat. So they're essentially
basically they changed the law.
They're wresting the power from the executive, and they're now handing it to the judicial branch and saying, yeah, too bad. You can't do anything.
Do we have the language of the, I think we need to pull this up because I actually have, okay, great. So let's read through this because this is really important. This section that Nam was just talking about, this is 28 USC 546, which basically gives the president power to temporarily appoint people into positions when the Senate is sitting with their thumbs up their butt.
Not the president.
Is that right?
Not the president.
I'm sorry. The Attorney General. The Attorney General.
Gives the Attorney General. So this statute covers only vacancies. Vacancies in U.S. attorney seats. Now,
all right. So let's read this.
Sure. So in this statute, right? So it goes on and it lays out, the except provided in subsection B, the Attorney General may appoint a United States attorney for the district in which the office of the United States Attorney is vacant, right? So after the first 120 days of Eric Siebert, that office would have then been vacant without a confirmation. So then the district court stepped in pursuant to section D down here, which says, we're going to tie all this together. If an appointment expires under subsection C2, we'll get to that. The district court for such district may appoint a United States attorney to serve until the vacancy is filled. May. Notice that word may. Statutory. These two words, shall not, and may, have very important, very specific meanings. Shall means you are required to do something. Shall not means you are prevented from doing something. The word may in legal language and in statutory language means you can. You don't have to, but you can. Okay.
It's intentionally vague. This language is intentionally vague.
Right. Well, what it does is it creates a situation where, in my opinion, either the president or the attorney general or the courts may, the district courts may, if the president or the attorney general haven't already appointed someone into that position.
That's right.
Because if it's vacant, then they may do it. So that essentially should read as a concurrent authority, meaning there are multiple people that would have that authority because the district court only has the authority to may appoint someone. It doesn't say the district court shall appoint someone. Okay, so
hold on, pause. That is a really important point that you just made, and everyone needs to grasp this because this is one of the arguments that are going to be had in the public and really legal arguments that are going to have to be resolved over the next couple of weeks. The concept of concurrent authority here, because the statutory language says may, it means that multiple potential entities have concurrent authority here, right? So what this judge did in flat out throughout the indictments of both Leticia James and James Comey today, effectively stole the concurrent power that the Attorney General and potentially the President of the United States has in order to staff his Department of Justice the way he wants to staff it.
Well, it actually starts with two Democrat senators that are stealing it, frankly. But before we get to the reason why, I want everybody to understand in 28 USC 564, there is one exception to this statute about who can or cannot be appointed to this position. The only one, and it's section C, 1 or 2. Section C1 says that you cannot appoint someone that has already been voted down by the Senate. Section 2, the expiration of 120 days after appointment by the Attorney General under this section. Okay, that would have been Siebert if he had been reappointed to an interim attorney. There was an entirely different person that was not just appointed as an interim U.S. attorney. She was submitted to the Senate to be confirmed. Okay, that's an important distinction there. Because, where is this? What the judge decided to do is rest the power of the executive to pick his prosecutors, she said that no, only the district court may appoint a United States attorney to serve until the vacancy is filled. Only. She made it an exclusionary power or an exclusive authority as opposed to a concurrent power or concurrent authority in there.
No, I don't remember seeing that in the statute. I
Mm.
don't remember seeing in the statute that the attorney general only has 120 days to temporarily install somebody in that office. Did you see that in the
No.
statute? And after that
No,
120 days, they lose that authority entirely? Did you see
Well,
that?
well, here's the thing, right? And this is the argument that a lot of folks are having because, again, we have seen over the years, over decades, we have seen different branches of government basically try to wrest or cede power from other branches of government. This Supreme Court and this president is not playing that game anymore. Okay, he's not doing it. And so Will Chamberlain had a really great thread on this earlier today, but I pulled just this one. And I want everybody to understand what he's saying here when he says at the end, this opinion will be reversed. And the reason why is because the Supreme Court, over a number of cases in the last few years, we've seen it with, you know, all of the regulatory and the bureaucracy where, you know, through their regulations, they're basically, or Congress is ceding, you know, their authority to these bureaucracies or to these agencies, and they're making all these regulatory decisions. No, that's not what the Supreme Court has been leading to. Over the past year, the Supreme Court has been signaling that the unitary executive is not just a theory, it is a thing. And what that means is that it's the Constitution and interpretations of statutes that purport to confiscate executive authority, which is exactly what that judge just did. She took the authority to appoint the prosecutor that the unitary executive has decided he wants in that position. She was never voted down by the Senate at all. That's not what happened.
In fact, she was never given a vote, period.
She was never given a vote, period, which is another part of the problem here. So, PatriotDad, do you understand this blue slip rule?
I didn't until you explain it. But as I understand this blue slip rule, basically this is another one of these outdated, antiquated Senate rules that have been in place for 100 years that basically give all power to one or two senators to shut down any type of movement in the Senate. So correct me if I'm wrong, Nom, but my understanding of the blue slip rule is that if a nominee is up for confirmation and both senators from that state do not agree with the person being nominated, meaning Halligan is from Virginia, meaning both senators from the state of Virginia would then have to agree to allow her to even get a vote.
Right.
Am I saying that right? So because
that's exactly right.
The Senate or the Virginia has two Democrat senators. Those two Democrat senators get to determine whether or not Halligan even gets a vote. And apparently they decided that she doesn't because they hate women prosecutors. I don't know what reason, but that sounds like a legitimate reason to me. They don't like women conservative.
For a Democrat, sure.
It sounds like something Democrats would do. They don't want a female conservative or Republican prosecutor in office. So they're just saying, nah, we're not going to give her a vote. And it's my understanding that the Trump administration, Donald Trump specifically, has been challenging this rule for a long time. But of course, Mitch McConnell, who's probably one of the biggest sellouts on the planet, at least he got rich and his family got rich and he made a whole lot of money in the Senate, but he decided not to change the rule. This is another one of those rules that we probably need to take another look at. So basically what it's saying is that we can't put anybody into positions that live in states that have Democrats in those Senate seats because they're just going to deny a vote. They're just not going to allow it to happen.
Now this blue slip rule, I believe it only applies to U.S. attorneys, right? But I mean, that's completely accurate. So the Senate does have the role of advise and consent for these types of rules, for all of these appointments, which it doesn't, however, in the Constitution, anywhere or in any statute say No, just the 2 senators from the state get to weigh in. It says the entire Senate has the advice and consent role. So Mitch McConnell, being 92 years old and incapable of doing anything at all, let alone walking in most places, certainly
or not being
tweeting,
entirely corrupt,
has decided that this is going to continue. So we're going to continue to see Democrats who their entire position is anything Trump is for, we are against.
Mm-hmm.
So we are now left because we've got 2 Democrat senators in the state of Virginia. They have basically ceded the power to prosecute, which, by the way, is a unitary power of the executive of the United States, not the Senate, not the judicial branch. It is a unitary power of the Article 2 president of the United States to pick who his prosecutors are. And it's the job of the Senate, the full Senate, to give their advice and consent, not just 2. So now, because of that, an activist insurrectionist judge in the judicial branch is now in charge of the prosecutorial power in the state of Virginia. That's where we're at. That's where we're at in the judicial insurrection.
I'm baffled. I'm not baffled because I understand how the swamp works. I understand how the deep state works. I understand how the color revolution works. So folks, I just want to kind of bring this out to the 30,000 foot view. Is that the right level? Is it 30,000? Is it 50,000? Is it 6? I don't know what it is. We want to talk about this at a much higher level, just to kind of paint the picture for you to understand how this tentacle of the color revolution is operating. So Donald Trump was reelected with an agenda to prosecute people who broke the law, particularly people in positions of power who engaged in a grand conspiracy against the color of rights of the American people, engaged in sedition, in some cases possibly treason, which means you need to have effective prosecutors in the Department of Justice who are able to go out and prosecute people. That's kind of like step number 1. If you want to prosecute, is you actually have people in those roles that can prosecute, are willing to, because we already know there's been several district attorneys who have stepped back and said, yeah, I'm not going to prosecute these people because they didn't say this. This is just my interpretation, because they're my friends, or because I want to make sure that I'm invited to those cocktail parties. I want to make sure that I'm still included in their email threads and I'm still allowed in Washington, D.C. to show my face in public. So they have chosen not to do the job that they were in the seats to do. So they were fired, or some of them left. So what Donald Trump does is he comes along and he starts appointing people into these roles. And the Senate sits on those appointments. And in some cases, don't even allow people to go up for a vote, knowing that they can just slow roll this whole process. Tim Kaine and Mark Warner. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's not even just slow roll the process. Instead of slow rolling it, they know that if they do this, they're going to get the prosecutors they want, and not the prosecutors that the Article 2 president, the unitary executive, want, which is exactly what the entire point of this exercise is.
So that's part 2, right? So part 1 of this tentacle of the color revolution is the Senate basically refuses to confirm the nominees that President Trump and thereby the American people voted for. President Trump nominated, we voted for his agenda, knowing that he was going to prosecute people who broke the law. And because the Senate is chock full of utterly corrupt, disgusting human beings who are only there to enrich themselves and for their family legacy, for the most part. There's a couple of good ones, I'm sure, somewhere, who are oddly quiet as this is playing out, but nonetheless, they're there and they're supposed to be doing a job. Now, I don't know, Nom, call me crazy, but I follow politics for a long time. How often does a president run into this type of a problem with judicial nominees or filling, prosecutor roles? Usually these are just like, yep, that's who the president wants. We're going to vote, confirm them, and move on. Right?
Well, it is always that way if the president is a Democrat. If it's
Always.
a Republican, there have been battles over Republican administrations to get their U.S. attorneys through confirmation. A lot of battles, but you don't ever have this problem if it's a Democrat president.
Never.
You don't ever see the
Never have this problem.
Republicans in the Senate doing. I mean, they're almost all unanimous votes. Almost always.
That's right. Always. Almost always. There might be a couple
That
of here
should
and
tell
there.
you everything you need to know about who the people in the Senate truly are. All they care about is protecting themselves.
I want to remind you, I don't know if it was Limbaugh or if it was Bongino, it was one of the two. Most Republicans are actually Democrats, and no Democrats are actually Republicans. If you use that filter from which to, if you use that concept with which to filter these concepts out, it makes perfect sense. Most people in Washington, D.C. are actually Democrats. They're just pretending not to be because they feel like they can get elected that way and they can make a whole lot of money doing it. So tentacle number one of this portion of the color revolution, the Senate steals executive to authority by refusing to do their job, by refusing to confirm the nominees that President Trump puts up. And then tentacle number two, which is probably one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen come out of a district court. And we've seen some absolutely horrifying decisions that are almost unanimously being overturned by appeals courts and by Supreme Court. These district court judges, we need to go through person by person by person and look very closely at who every single one of these district court judges are to understand who confirmed them, who nominated them, who's funding them, what money they have flowing into their piggy banks and all that kind of stuff. Because now you have a federal judge who basically rewrote the statute to block Donald Trump and the Department of Justice from ever being able to fill this seat, because the Senate's not going to confirm the person that Trump wants in that seat. And therefore, if the Senate's not going to confirm them, then what this judge just did is told Donald Trump, you no longer have any authority to staff this seat. Now we're going to do it. Now we're going to put the person in that seat that we think should be in there. And guess who that person's going to be? It's going to be somebody who's going to refuse to prosecute, because we've already seen that. As a matter of fact, this guy, Eric, whatever his name is, Eric Siebert, Eric Siebert was in this role. And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong here. If I am, please let me know. Was in this role because the district court appointed him to it. I don't think Trump appointed this person.
No.
Am I right about that?
Trump originally did appoint him to the role on January 21st, 2025. And because there was no confirmation vote, there was no vote on anything in the first 120 days, Trump did nothing. And then the district court stepped in because they may do that. And they said, just stay in the role until you get confirmed.
So,
and that went all the way until September of 2025.
But remember, the thing about Eric Siebert is he was refusing to pursue an indictment against Comey, Leticia James, and these other really bad actors. So we had a prosecuting attorney in this role that the district court, quote unquote, extended his appointment because he was doing the things that the district judges wanted him to do, which was not prosecute the people that the American people have demanded to be prosecuted. So folks, it's really important that you understand how this tentacle of the color revolution works. You have a district court judge who is willing to rewrite the statute specifically to throw out indictments of two what look to be career criminals. One of them quite possibly is engaged in sedition and possibly treason. And now you have a district court judge making up new components of a statute and basically saying, sorry, President Trump, we own the appointment authority now, because the Senate is playing along and not doing their part to allow Donald Trump to appoint his nominees.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Did I capture that right?
You got it.
This is what 100%. A color revolution looks like.
Yeah. Well,
like, this is how
this is what it looks like. Revolution. Yeah.
Holy crap.
Sure.
This
Actually,
is maddening.
It's a couple tentacles. Yeah. Do you remember when we got started and I said I'm fit to be tied today?
Yeah.
That's one reason.
Wait, there's another reason? Of course there's another reason. Now, honestly, as I've been moving in and stuff this weekend, I haven't been paying that close attention to this angle. So I'm going to let you run with it because I know you're super fired up about it, but I'm sure I'll have some comments about it here along the way.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So that's, if you guys noticed the title of the podcast today, right? It's episode 27, Judicial, Insurrection, and the Congressional Sedition. So what we're watching play out. So as we do this next segment, I want you to keep the last segment in mind, okay? Because what we're dealing with now appears nothing more than asynchronous warfare, frankly, where you've got the judicial branch and then you've got the legislative branch that are all turning their fire on the executive branch, which is exactly what is not supposed to happen in our system of checks and balances, like at all. But they're not doing it legally. They're not doing it through passing laws and ruling on the legality of laws and things like that. No. In this example, they're just an open sedition. They're an open sedition of the judiciary branch where they're ignoring precedent in many ways. They're rewriting statutes in many ways. They're ignoring laws, and they're forcing prosecutors that the president does not want in those positions. So what do we have? Well, I think by now you guys all remember we had the Seditious Six last week, right? And it was 6 elected Democrats. You had 2 senators, and you had 4 House representatives in the House. And they all came together, and they just randomly thought it was a great idea. Hey, I don't know. Let's get up today and let's remind the U.S. military, the armed forces, that you have a duty. You have a duty to disobey unlawful orders.
I don't think that was random. I don't think that was anything but carefully scripted.
Well,
it was like Hollywood wrote that script.
Let's remind everybody what happened. Now, this video has been out for almost a week now. And when you watch it the first, second, third, maybe fourth and fifth time, you may miss some very key components of this video. I want you to look at all of the hair and makeup that's done. I want you to look at the production value that's done. I want you to look at the legal language and the Hollywood style script or screenwriting that's done here. And I want you to look at how well produced this entire thing is and tell me if this video was an accident.
Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain.
Senator Alyssa Slotkin.
Senator Mark Kelly.
Representative Chris DeLuzio.
Congresswoman Maggie Goodlander.
Representative Chrissy Houlihan.
Congressman Jason Crow. I was a captain in the United States Navy.
Former CIA officer.
Former Navy.
Former paratrooper and Army Ranger.
Former intelligence officer.
Former Air Force.
We want to speak directly to members of the military
and the intelligence community.
To
take risks each day
to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now. Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens.
like us. You all swore an oath
to protect.
I'm going to stop it right there.
Man, there's so much in that we have to talk about. Go ahead, because I want to back up a second too.
Yeah, well, you go first because mine's just in the last 15 seconds.
Holy crap. The American people are losing trust in the military. Did you catch that? Can we maybe rewind a little bit? Hold on, let's go back just a couple of seconds, folks. I think we need to hear this, and I'll pause it as we go.
The members of the military
and the intelligence community
who take risks each day
to keep Americans safe.
We know you are under enormous stress and pressure right now. Americans trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration.
Wait. So are we to believe that they're trying to convince the American people that our trust in the military is at risk? Whose trust in the military is at risk? Folks in the comments, raise your hands. Do me a favor. Tell me, is your trust in the military at risk under Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump?
No.
What say you? No? Okay, I didn't think so. Sorry.
So before you continue,
is pitting
pause. Before you continue, now they've actually created or tried very hard to create a significant amount of distrust in the military, specifically the National Guard, who, as you might recall, the president has called up into numerous cities to defend federal agents serving federal warrants and immigration detainers and deportation orders. That's it. But these same asshats have spent the last 6 months running around telling you that the military is being deployed for what? What does Chris Valenti say all the time? What did he say? Martial law.
To go after the American people and martial law.
Martial law. So if there is any distrust among American citizens in the U.S. military, it's because these assholes have spent the last 6 months swearing to you that the U.S. military is being deployed to implement martial law, when in fact they are being deployed. It is. Well, it's part of the color revolution.
This is we've seen this over and over again. Look, folks, this is a lot like it's one of those, when you buy a new car and you start driving down the road, you got your flashy Mustang, and then, well, that's not good. Whatever. You buy a new car, and then suddenly everywhere you go, you see your car on the road, right? It's not because that car suddenly showed up on the road more often, but now it's more familiar to you because you're used to it, right? You see your car in the garage, and next thing you know, you see Mustangs everywhere. That's what it's like paying attention to these people, because it's the same tactic over and over and over again. Here's what they do. They create a scenario through propaganda that is usually just gaslighting. A lot of times it is flat out lies, totally made up. And then they start the process of circulating that into the public lexicon. They want to create the idea that the things that they're lying to you about are real. So over the last 9 months, what they focused on was convincing you that the military were doing things that they were not actually doing. Convincing you that American citizens were being detained and possibly deported, which never happened. Not once. Convincing you that people were being kidnapped out of their homes, that they were being stripped away from their families, all the horrible things that they tried to convince you that was happening, they were lying to you. They were flat lying to you.
Well, sure. But what they were doing, because there are examples of people being stripped from their families and families being separated. But every rational person fully understands that if you're here illegally, and let's say you've got a citizen wife or you've got an anchor baby here, then yeah, you're going home. That was the deal. That's what we voted for. I'm sorry. If you are a criminal and you get a DUI and your wife and your daughter are in the car with you, you don't get to take your wife and your daughter to jail with you. You're going to jail without them.
That's right.
I mean, Tom Holman has made this point over and over and over again. And it doesn't escape me that every single mainstream example that they try to raise of Maryland dad or San Francisco dad or Texas dad are always, once you dig a little bit under the covers, heinous criminals.
Yep.
Heinous criminals.
But the point is the same, though. The point, though, is to create the perception that people were being mistreated so they could then do this, which is to say that the American people are losing trust. Yeah, like that was the whole purpose of the last 9 months gaslighting exercise, was to gaslight you, to get you to the place where now this dude can put a bunch of makeup on his head so it's not all shiny for the camera, and then suddenly start to tell you that, the American people are losing trust in the military because all the things that we lied to you about, that's why. That's what they did.
So, but that's a great discussion, but that wasn't even what I wanted to get to, because remember, the entire point of this video is to remind the military that it is their duty to disobey unlawful orders. And then after the video comes out, everybody's like, well, but they didn't say what the unlawful orders are. Well, they did. If you listen closely, they did. And I'm going to play it for you. I want you to listen very closely.
Uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens.
Did you catch that? Let's try it again. Ready?
trust their military.
But that trust is at risk.
This administration is pitting our uniformed military
and intelligence community professionals
against American citizens.
That right there. That what they are saying right there is that the unlawful orders that they have a duty to disobey is the National Guard deployments into American cities to protect federal assets and federal serving federal warrants and federal immigration detainers. That right there is it. And by the way, those are not unlawful orders. That's why this is seditious activity. Right?
No,
That's
as a
why
matter of
this is-
fact, those are not just not unlawful orders. Those have been adjudicated orders. Correct me if I'm wrong, Nom, but in each instance where the National Guard has been deployed in California and in wherever up in the Pacific Northwest and in Chicago,
Portland,
didn't those make it in front of a judge and a
They
judge
did.
ruled?
And
then
and
in
you
most
had
cases, an appeals court ruled?
Yes, every single time, as you know, you had federal district court judges who came in and said, no, this is unconstitutional. And then it gets to an appeals court, and the appeals court's like, the hell are you talking about? No, it's not. This is actually the job of the National Guard to protect these federal agents because the governors and the mayors are refusing to do it, which is why he's not doing this to police people. He's not doing it with National Guard to round people up. He's not implementing martial law. The National Guard in those cities are not serving police functions, except maybe in DC, which, by the way, is a very, very different scenario than all these states, because as you know, DC is not a state. It's very different. In these states, they are there doing the job that the state and local police are being prevented from doing it. So yeah, when it gets to the appeals court looks at the federal district court judges and says, what the hell are you doing? As a matter of fact, we literally just told you the last time you ruled on this that you were wrong, and you did it again and again and again and again. So that's where we are with this. So as a reminder, I just wanted to bring that up and mention, just so everybody remembered, because this is part of the color revolution. But there's a deeper angle here, and I actually forgot to load it up, but I want to play this video for you because Jesse Waters had an amazing clip today, and it brings in the Elisa Slotkin angle of all of this.
Isn't she former CIA, by the way?
She is former CIA. She was an analyst.
Yeah,
she was a CIA analyst. Okay, now here we go. Ready?
So I talked to two CIA officers who said that this is a part of a larger hoax, and what they're doing here is they're trying to condition the country to prepare for something bad that's about to happen at the hands of Donald Trump. It's straight out of the CIA playbook. It's a destabilization operation where you get people to mistrust each other. And you do this because she's an analyst. And as an analyst, she would make sure what propaganda operations were successful, which ones weren't. So she knows what works. So the first part of the video, you establish authority. I'm CIA, I'm military, you need to trust us. Second part of the video, they introduce the threat. And the threat's not foreign, the threat's domestic, the threat's Donald Trump. And then at the end, they introduce the solution. What's the solution? You resist, you say no. But they don't give an option. They say this is an obligation for you to do. Now, she is being run because she didn't come up with this herself. She's a Brennan acolyte, and you usually don't have congressmen and senators doing anything together. They kind of hate each other. So in order to organize this had to have had some sort of handler telling her what to do. And it was risky because nothing like this has ever been done in the history of the country. And you can even tell because the media was skeptical and they couldn't answer the question. So they hadn't even been read in on the operation. You see them fumbling and stumbling. And I'm glad that the U.S. military is now investigating this guy, Kelly, because this is what we expect from Donald Trump 2.0.
Okay. So there's a lot there. There's a lot there. Because Elisa Slotkin is a former CIA analyst, right? That was highly produced. So they've tried for the last week to tell you, no, we were just reminding military members what your oath is and that you have a duty to disobey lawful orders. And then when they tried to sort of couch this and they tried to clarify, they said, well, we didn't really mention any unlawful orders.
Then what the hell is
the process? Well, here's the point, right? Because everybody in that video knows that any order, like to deploy the National Guard or we know the unspoken one. We're going to get to it in a minute. The bombings in the Caribbean, Venezuelan drug boats, right? That's what this is. One of the things that this is really about. Every single one of those orders comes from the president or comes from the Joint Chiefs of Staff or the Pentagon or Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. Those orders are vetted by the White House counsel. They're vetted by JAG officers, by the Joint Chiefs of Staff's lawyers, by the Pentagon lawyers, and then all the way down the chain of command through the command structure to the people who are actually executing those orders. That video was not for the people in the chain of command to say, well, I'm going to disobey that order because I think it's an unlawful order, because you just had a JAG officer at somewhere along the way say, no, this is a legal order. It wasn't meant for them. It was meant for the rank and file who were not supposed to question orders from their chain of command, because the chain of command will have already vetted those orders very significantly all the way down the path. That was not for the chain of command. That was to incite confusion and distrust in the rank and file. The only time you're going to get an unlawful order that the rank and file are going to execute is when it's going to come down from like a company commander or a unit commander, and he's going to say, hey, go wipe out that village over there. That's not what is happening right now. These are movements, these are deployment orders that are completely vetted all the way down Joint Chiefs of Staff through the Pentagon, through the command structure, but the message wasn't meant for them. It was meant for the rank and file. And that's where the sedition comes in. When you are intentionally trying to create confusion and distrust, and frankly, delegitimize the orders from your commander-in-chief and your chain of command, you are engaging in exactly what President Trump said that they are engaging in.
Well, I don't know if you saw it. I'm trying to find it right now, but Glenn Beck basically laid out, there it is right there, laid out the exact statute that it sounds like these people violated. And I'm trying to find it because I want to throw it up here. I don't know if you have it.
I don't. I know what you're talking about. He did.
Here we go. I got it right here. This is from somebody else, but I'm going to save this. I'm going to send it over to the Dropbox, and we need to pull it up. Go ahead and continue with your outline. I want to pull this up so people understand what exactly these people did, what law they violated, because they pretty clearly, based on my reading of this statute, they broke the law.
They did. Well, they broke the law, and Mark Kelly's got problems of his own, frankly. But let's go back to what the unlawful orders really are, because Alyssa Slotkin was asked this weekend which orders have been given that are unlawful. Do you know what she said?
Orders. To my knowledge, I am not aware of things that are illegal, but certainly there are some legal gymnastics that are going on with these.
Hold on. I want to stop that right there. You just said that, to my knowledge, I am not aware of any illegal orders. Then why in Sam hell did you push that video out? Why would you post that video? And I'm going to tell you why. Because this right here, listen closely.
Caribbean strikes and everything related to Venezuela.
Play that again.
Talk right now. Do you believe President Trump has issued any illegal orders?
To my knowledge, I am not aware of things that are illegal, but certainly there are some legal gymnastics that are going on with these Caribbean strikes and everything related to Venezuela.
So there it is. That's the coup de grace right there. Coup de grace, whatever it is. I don't know how to say it right.
Coup de grace.
That's
Coup de
it.
grace. I always screw
because
that
what they are setting up. This is a multifaceted, multi-pronged attack here. What they are doing is they're trying to just sort of create confusion and distrust and delegitimize the president to the rank and file, but they are also sending a shot across the bow to the chain of command and the leadership saying, hey, this thing you're doing with these drug boats, we're going to bring you up on charges in war crimes tribunals. That's what they're hinting at, which begs the question, why do you want to continue the flow of fentanyl and drugs that are killing 100,000 Americans a year? Whose payroll are you on? I'm going to need an answer from somebody. Because
I think we have that answer,
we do.
I feel like we have that answer somewhere. But before you do that, I want to pull this up because I just found it. For those of you guys who are not paying or not following along, oh, where did it go? Shoot. Where's the Glenn Beck? There it is. No, that's not it. That's not it. You know, you've got too many images up here. It's not letting me pull anything else up because we've got too much stuff up here. So you're going to need to drop some of those things down that you have staged. It's only letting me pull up 10.
Go.
Anyway, for some reason, it's not in the Dropbox. Okay, continue. I'll find it because we need to see this because I want you guys to hear the exact language of the statute that Glenn Beck sent to President Trump, and then President Trump truthed it out over the weekend. And it sounds like some of these people might be in real trouble.
I agree. So you go ahead and keep looking. I've got more. So Jason Crow, right? So let's talk about who these six, the Sedition Six are. We got Alyssa Slotkin, who's former CIA analyst. We've got Senator Mark Kelly, who, by the way, is a fully retired Navy captain, senior officer. That's important. We'll get to that in a second. You got Representative Jason Crow, former U.S. Army Ranger captain. Then you've got this Chris DeLuzio, and you've got Chrissy Houlihan, which are reserve captains or reserve officers. Then you got Maggie Goodlander. Do you know who Maggie Goodlander is, Patriot Dad?
That's Jake Sullivan's wife.
Yeah. Who's Jake Sullivan?
That's Jake Sullivan. Jake Sullivan, Biden administration, Obama administration, deeply involved in the grand conspiracy.
Yeah, Jake Sullivan had his fingertips all over Russian collusion and all over the Ukraine impeachment hoax, didn't he? So he was Biden's national security advisor. But before that, he was the national security advisor to Joe Biden, to Vice President Joe Biden. Him and Joe Biden go a long way back. And
well, he's also the deputy chief of staff to Hillary Clinton, too, when she was Secretary of State.
That's true. So are you telling me that the wife of Jake Sullivan, who Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, all three of them, and then Jake Sullivan, all three have been engaged in nearly a 10-year coup against President Trump. Are you telling me that she just randomly showed up in that seditionist video? Here's my shock face. All right, what do you got here?
All right, so here's a I guess it was a post on X that was sent to President Trump. And we need to read this because everyone out in the lexicon over in the propaganda 1630 funded chorus media, they've been just trying to convince you that, no, these people didn't do anything wrong. Don't worry about it. They're just making a video reminding people that in the military that you don't have to follow unlawful orders, regardless of the fact that none of the orders that the president has given are actually unlawful. The goal there was to sow confusion and division and distrust and color revolution. So here's the statute that the American people need to become very familiar with. 18 U.S.C. 2387, activities affecting armed forces general. This statute makes it a federal crime to do any of the following with the intent to interfere with U.S. military operations. Number one, advise, urge, or attempt to cause insubordination, check. Disloyalty, check. Mutiny, check. Or refusal of duty.
Check.
Wow. Check. Among members of the U.S. military. Number two, obstruct or attempt to obstruct recruiting, enlistment, or general military operations. Three, distribute written materials advocating any of the above. This law does not require advocating the overthrow of the government. That is subsection 2385. Subsection 2387 is specifically about undermining the functioning of the U.S. military. Now, you tell me, when you go back and you listen to the Seditious Six video again, does that not sound like an attempt to advise, urge, or attempt to cause insubordination, disloyalty, mutiny, or refusal of duty among members of the U.S. military? Nom, what do you think?
I think it does. In fact, that we just spent about 10 minutes explaining exactly why. That is designed that video was not made and not meant for the military leadership. It was meant for the rank and file. So any order they're given to say, oh, I don't want to get in trouble. Was this an unlawful order, and run off to their JAG officer instead of doing their job, even though those orders have been vetted all the way down the chain of command by layers and layers and layers and layers of military lawyers.
Yep. Now, I'm just going to kind of pull on this thread a second. Nom, tell me if you think I'm out of bounds here, but as we start thinking about the long-term prosecutorial plan here, notwithstanding the fact that there's a judicial coup happening, that there is, in my estimation, senatorial sedition happening at the same time. We know that there's congressional sedition going on, but the fact that we have military members and at least one who is married to somebody who was deeply involved in the grand conspiracy, does this not sound like resetting the clock? You know,
the statute
does
of
this not
limitations
sound
clock,
like a
that's pretty good.
continuance of the grand conspiracy? Is that what this sounds? That's what it sounds like to me, folks.
I think it does, actually.
It feels like Alyssa Slotkin just reset the clock all over again.
Yeah.
At least that's the case that I would make if I was in the Trump administration.
I agree.
And the case that
too.
Pam Bondi needs to start making.
No, well, hold on.
What are you doing?
That case, hold on. We already know that there have been 2 grand juries impaneled in South Florida that are set to, I think, start in January. Hold on, you can go back on this. We're not ready for this yet. I just want to
okay. Sorry.
So the grand conspiracy case is starting in Florida. The grand juries have been impaneled. We know that. John Solomon told us that months ago, and it's still going forward. Oh, and by the way, you're not going to have any DC elite insurrectionist activist federal judges down there in those district courts. That's not what's down there. It's an entirely different planet down there. Which
you mean Mark Warner and Tim Kaine can't blue slip a prosecutor out of a Southern Florida district?
No, the prosecutor's already there, and he's already impaneled the grand jury. He's already doing his job.
Oh, okay, got it.
So that I hadn't thought about that angle. That this is just another event that resets the statute of limitations in the 10 years long.
At this point, there is no statute of limitations to be concerned about. The only clock that is ticking is the midterm clock at this point.
That is true.
Are they going to have enough testicular fortitude in the Trump administration and in the Department of Justice between now and call it September, October of next year to actually arrest these people and charge them, prosecute them, and jail them for the crimes that they've committed? Because go ahead.
I'm going to tell you this. If they don't, MAGA will not get out and vote for them.
No.
They will lose the midterms. And President Trump will be impeached the following year. And he will be removed by the Senate. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
And everybody needs to wrap their heads around that idea. If these people do not start getting arrested and start going to jail, President Trump will be impeached this time 2 years from now. That's just a fact.
The agenda we voted for is effectively over. And as a matter of fact, America as the country that we all pray over, that we fight to preserve, is effectively over in the next 12 months if this doesn't change. If these people don't start going to jail, your country's lost. And there's probably no getting it back. SK continues to say in the green room of our shows over and over and over again. By the way, I saw SK over on the YouTube channel. I think she's watching. Hey, SK. Hope everything's going well. She continues to say that the color revolution is literally on the 2-yard line and they're getting ready to punch it into the end zone. And that 2 yards equals about 12 months.
Yep. That's a fact. So I pulled this picture up here because there was a big development today as a result of the Seditious Six, because I was asked in a live on TikTok the other day about Mark Kelly. So Mark Kelly can actually still be recalled to active duty. He's the only one of those 6 that the UCMJ still has any sort of holdover, because he is a fully retired senior officer in the Navy. And the Department of War and both Pete Hegseth, both of them have come out and said they are investigating this. They are looking at it very, very seriously, and they're taking the allegations of misconduct very seriously. So in accordance with the Uniform Code of Military Justice, 10 U.S.C. 688, and other applicable regulations, a thorough review of these allegations has been initiated. It is possible that Mark Kelly can be recalled to active duty simply because of the rank that he held when he retired, and he can be forced to stand for court-martial. So
he needs to.
He does. Yeah. And by the way, this last paragraph is important, and I hope every single person, the rank and file military, and every branch that's out there. All service members are reminded that they have a legal obligation under the UCMJ to obey lawful orders, and that orders are presumed to be lawful because they have already been vetted all the way through the chain of command. A service member's personal philosophy does not justify or excuse the disobedience of an otherwise lawful order. What that video was intending to do was flip this on its head to where these individual service members were making their own determinations of whether they were going to do their duty, whether they're going to be deployed, or they were going to push a button, or they were going to fly a plane. No, those orders are already presumed to be lawful. You will know what an unlawful order looks like, and it looks like go and mow down that village or go and destroy that evidence. That's what an unlawful order looks like. That's everything else, by the way, you could presume that it's a lawful order. Are we clear?
We're clear. Crystal clear. Hey, Nom, before we wrap up, I want to show something to you. Tell me what this is. You put this in the Dropbox. What is this?
I don't know. What do you got? Oh, forgot to bring that up. That, Patriot Dad, is the donations from the Soros family.
Oh.
To Alyssa Slotkin.
Oh, wait a minute. So earlier when you were asking who's her handler, because you remember Nom made a really important point that this video, this Seditious Six video that they created, looks like it's scripted, very well scripted. Not only was it scripted, but they were able to cut up 2-second intervals with 6 people and put it together in a way that looks like every single one of them read the exact same script. And then they just chopped it up and they put it together. As someone who makes content, I know how this works. That took a long time to do. That's not something that was done with a cell phone over, a 5-minute editing session. They all had makeup. Mark Kelly's hair, is that his name? Mark Kelly, whatever. His scalp wasn't shiny, which means that he had put whatever powder on it to make it not shiny in the camera and the lights. They produced this. Hair and makeup. Somebody paid for this. Alyssa Slotkin is a former CIA, and when you're in the CIA, you're never former. Let's just get that out of the way. So as an analyst in the CIA, likely has someone handling this engagement for her. And now I think we know who that somebody is reporting to. Jonathan Soros, $3,300. Jonathan Soros, $3,300. Andrea Soros, Jennifer Soros, George Soros, Robert Soros, Andrea Soros, Jonathan Soros, Robert. Do you see where Alyssa Slotkin, the CIA analyst, gets her support from? George Soros. So when people ask the question, who's her handler? Doesn't really matter because now we know who's funding her. George Soros. Wow. It all ties back to the Color Revolution.
Soros funds all of them.
No,
Soros
funds all of them. So I'm going to say this before we wrap, and Nom, if you've got any closing statements as well. President Trump, this is my fantasy that you watch this show. I don't know if you do. People in your inner circle in the White House, I'm just praying that you guys are watching shows like this because here's what, oh, wait, what's this? This is a really bad and dangerous to our country. The words cannot be, okay. President Trump, you know this. You've got a very short window to regain control of the MAGA base. The MAGA base is scattering right now for a host of reasons, and maybe we'll get into that. A lot of that has to do with people who are perverting the concept of America First, another topic for another day. They're trying to silence the army that you put together through division, and it's working. The reason why it's working, Mr. President, is because the American people don't see action on the things that we were promised we were going to see action on. And when judges and senators and Congress people break the law to protect themselves from accountability, we have to see some action. We have to see people being arrested for breaking the law. It is obvious to me that the Seditious Six violated the law by attempting to persuade military members, not high-ranking officials, rank and file military to potential mutiny against your orders. And if these people don't go to jail for it, your base, and I hate to say this, Mr. President, because I have worked and Nom has worked, and so many of us have worked so hard to get you reelected and to drive your message, your base is not going to show up unless these people start being held accountable. I don't know how else to explain it.
Well, and so that actually is a really, I don't know how you did that. That's a pretty good dovetail right into this, what I wanted to end
I didn't
with,
even read this. Okay.
Because while you were busy moving into your new permanent temporary place, President Trump was out there sending out True Social posts like he tends to do. And this one had the entire left up in arms. They read this and they said President Trump is calling for the execution of elected Democrats. And they ran with it. You saw Harry and all the other fucking moron retards out there doing this. No, what President did was he simply told you what the penalty for sedition is. So for the Seditious Six and the rest of you that are out there claiming, that the video you made was just simply reminding people what their duty is to disobey unlawful orders, President Trump was simply reminding you what the potential penalty for sedition is.
It sounds like someone's got a guilty conscience.
Oh, and in the case of Mark Kelly, it can be death, because you still, when you're recalled to active duty, are still beholden to the UCMJ.
And folks, if you haven't read up on the UCMJ, it's not very forgiving.
No, they don't have a lot of time or patience.
Like, we don't do a lot of breaking big rocks into little rocks in our jail system and our penitentiary system anymore. But the UCMJ might actually still do that kind of stuff.
Maybe. I don't know if they still do that at Leavenworth. But
probably not. But nonetheless, it's not the same as going to a federal court. It is very different. And can be much harsher.
The rules of evidence are very different too.
Yeah.
For what it's worth.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, Nom, I think we got to wrap. We're way over time. Mr. President, the clock is ticking.
Yep.
We're going to be here to drive your agenda for you. But the agenda has to start moving, or folks are going to leave. They're already starting to. You can get them back. You can get your base back together if we start seeing accountability for people like this. The American people aren't going to stand for sedition anymore. We're not going to stand for this. But we need people in positions of authority that are actually taking that agenda and implementing it. And when you see judges that are breaking federal law and violating the Constitution and depriving the American people of our rights, something has to change. Something has to happen. John Thune, a complete and utter disgrace at this point. To allow the district court judges to rewrite statutes simply by sticking your thumb up your rear end and not doing your job is fireable. It's fireable. I could go on and on. Mr. President, you got to do something, and you got to do it fast. All right, I'm done. Anything to add, Nom?
Do not. We ready?
Folks, yeah, I think we're going to do a Wednesday show, Thanksgiving Eve show. For those of us that are our age, we're not going to be going to the bars like all the recent high school grads that go meet their friends again that they haven't seen for a while. We're going to do a show. And
let's do a fun show.
I have a fun show. I don't know if anyone's done this, but do you remember how Rush Limbaugh used to do Thanksgiving? Do you remember that, when he used to read the real story behind Thanksgiving?
Tell the real story, yeah.
I think we need to do that. I think we need to spend time on this show, and we need to read his version of the real story of Thanksgiving, because I have it. And it's incredible. Okay. And it's incredibly timely, because everything that you read in your academic books and in your elementary school books about Thanksgiving is wrong. It's made up. Thanksgiving, the story behind how Thanksgiving came to be, is a explanation of what happens under the exact system of government and economics that the radical left are trying to implement into this country right now. Socialism was tried, it failed, and people almost starved, and that's why we have Thanksgiving. I think we need to bring that up. We need to dust it off, and we need to talk about it. So we're going to do the real story behind Thanksgiving on Wednesday, and maybe some other fun stuff. Hope you guys love it.
Fantastic idea. I think
it's a great idea.
I read it. Send it over. I
it's great. All right, I'll send it over. We'll prep. I'll try to get my Rush Limbaugh voice on the best I can, and we will read his version of the Thanksgiving story. All right, send us out. See you, folks. Hope you had fun. This was good. Later.
The bullets and the punches and the riots have been flowing in only one direction for too long.
I've been trying to tell you guys this whole time how corrupt all of these things were, and here we are.
It is not our responsibility to fix something they spent years intentionally trying to destroy. Unity can only happen in a country when you have a people who agree on what the outcome should be.